Hey guys, Chris here from Carolot Farm. It is the very tail end of July and we are just beginning our second major heat wave of the summer. Something I have noticed in the last 4 to 6 weeks, I'm gonna say, is that Sweetheart's weight has drastically increased. She went from looking like just perfectly round, very healthy towards the end of June to now I look at her and I go, she looks really overweight, and I am really beginning to worry about her weight. So let's talk about minis and their weight, right? Well, you don't want any horse to be overweight. You definitely don't want your mini to be overweight, and it happens so fast sometimes. It can happen on grass, which we have a lot of these days, and it can happen easily with grain because a small amount of grain for a mini goes a lot farther than it would for a significantly larger horse. Well, if you've been following our videos, you know that we have been graining our horses very carefully. We've been watching their weight like a hawk, and everything we do, we have been doing very slow and steady. So the fact that her weight has increased super fast in just a few short weeks, with me actually scaling back her grain significantly over that time, really kind of had me scratching my head as to what was going on. And were there other factors that could be playing a part here? Once I noticed that Sweetheart's weight had really jumped, she's put on so much weight, and I'm still scratching my head, like, how did that happen, right? I've been so careful, and, I've been cutting her grain back. I told you, in the winter, she was a little thin. I mean, she actually had a bony top line, and you could absolutely feel her ribs and see them. And so at one point, she was getting as much as like 1.5 pounds of Triple Crown Senior. And then over the spring, we started scaling it back, and then she was down to 1 pound. And earlier in June, we cut her to even under 1 pound. And in this last stretch, in the last 4 weeks, watching her weight kind of, creep up, I continued to cut her back. And now she's only getting a small 1/2 cup of grain. This is a 4-ounce container of Triple Crown Senior. I mean, it's a handful. I can hold it in the palm of my hand, and she's getting that really just so that she has something for me to sprinkle her asthma medicine on top of. She doesn't need it for weight. And that just, again, my mind is just going and going and going as to, like, why is she continuing to gain this weight so rapidly when she's getting so little grain? It could be in part to the grass. I will say that, we do have more grass for this time of year than most summers. However, it's less grass than I would say we had, 4 to 6 weeks ago. I think the grass was even more lush back in the late part of June. So the grass could be a slight contributor to her weight gain, but I don't think that's the big thing. And it's certainly not the grain, because again, we've been cutting that back steadily, which leads me to the one only thing that I can kind of begin to suspect could be the culprit, and that is the medication. Sweetheart did have an asthma flare-up the last week in June, and that was at the tail end of our first summer heat wave. We had the vet out, we did a full evaluation on her, and at the vet's recommendation, we started her on her first round of Dex. Now, Dex is a medicine that I am not super familiar with. I have done some reading, and I've talked to a few other people about it, but by no means am I a specialist, right? I'm not even gonna begin to say that I know much about it, but I do know enough to have some concerns about founder and laminitis. And horses who tend to be obese or who have other metabolic issues, those are the horses that vets tend to not prescribe Dex for because of the likelihood of it causing them to founder and have laminitis. Well, when I raised this concern with my vet, she felt that, because Sweetheart does not show any signs of having previously foundered. Again, I've only had her for a few months, but looking at her hooves and just in general, the vet did not think that she, has had any issues before. My gut, though, has still left me a little skeptical. But again, I went ahead, I gave her the Dex. She responded well, and I was grateful for that. And now we are in the middle of our second heat wave. And so I have started her on a second round of decks. I guess what I'm trying to say is I am beginning to wonder if the decks isn't part of the reason why Sweetheart has had this, big increase to her weight gain. Dex is a steroid. It's meant for helping combat inflammation, and because of that, because of just the compound and what it is, it has been known for some horses to increase their appetite. It's been known to, have effects on their metabolism. And I'm just beginning to really wonder if that's why she's having this huge surge in her weight gain, not because of what I'm feeding her, not because of the grass, but because there's metabolically something that has changed. And that's the only thing that I can really attribute to this pretty drastic weight gain. And here we are, we're in the second heat wave of the summer. I have started her on a second round of decks, which has me even more concerned because now she's heavier than she was 4 weeks ago. So today is now Saturday. I have been putting her in her shade shelter with the fans for many hours each afternoon, which I think is good because it is getting her off the grass and it's limiting what she's eating. So I think in some ways it's kind of this blessing in disguise that it's so hot because I'm just naturally, pulling her off and restricting her grazing. So I don't know, guys, there are just so many things that are going around in my head. I do want to reach out to my vet though and kind of let them know that I've noticed this huge uptick in her weight and that I've started her on the second round of decks, which they recommended. They said, if I start having concerns about her breathing or if we were to see another big heat wave coming, they said that we could start her on the decks sort of ahead of time to help her lungs and everything stay more open and less inflamed before the high heat and humidity hits. So I'm really trying to follow, my vet's orders and their best practices, but I'm still a little concerned about Sweetheart. And so I'm watching her very, very carefully. And I just wanted to share this with you though, because it's quite a journey. So enough of this kind of prelude to the day. I am going to now head down, feed Sweetheart and Rocky, do my picking as kind of fast as I can because it's already very hot and humid. And then I think for the rest of the day, I've just got so much mowing to do. And with the heat, it'll be a little bit here and a little bit there. But I might share a little more about Sweetheart, and I want to show you just how heavy she's gotten. So once I get down to the barn, I'll give you a few more clips down there. But, it's always something. Another thing I've done in the last week to modify everyone's kind of grazing is they are now back to having limited access to this new side paddock. This is the one that sits right beside the garden or below the garden. I would say the grass is probably still the best here in this turnout, and so I am only giving the horses a couple of hours. Once again, it's like this on again, off again. For a couple of weeks they get full access, then they have limited access, and it all depends on the grass. But I have been limiting that for everyone, and that was really because of Sweetheart's weight gain that I was seeing kind of unfolding right before our eyes. But it can't hurt for the others to have a little bit of a modification as well. When feeding and caring for miniature horses, they're so small and their metabolisms are such that it doesn't take much for them to overeat. And so I've been watching the grass all year long. I know every video it's like, oh, Chris is talking about the grass this and the grass that. Well, that's because, again, they're so small and they can eat their full day's worth of calories within like a couple of hours on like quality grass. And so we have to be really mindful of what they eat. So that being said, it's now time to feed them their breakfast. But I just wanted to kind of just remind you of that. If you have minis, if you're considering getting minis, you have to be really careful. And I am trying to be as careful as I can. And I'm still feeling like at times I'm struggling with this, and trying to stay on top of their weight is really quite challenging sometimes. Look at how round she is. And she's kind of grumpy. She's like, I want my breakfast. But just look at how round she is. I mean, just in the last 4 weeks, she has really blimped up. I'm gonna have to step in because she is very aggressive when it comes to her breakfast. I know, sweet girl. Flanagan's here is already getting sweaty, and this is their favorite rolling spot. This is kind of the dusty, sandy spot in the barnyard. So he already just got a good roll. I'm gonna go open that gate though, because it is time for the horses to have their limited turnout in that side paddock. I know Snuggles and Shenanigans are ready, and as soon as Sweetheart and Rocky are finished eating, I'll turn them out, and usually they're out here for about 2 hours, and then I pull them off. I do want to show you just how round she's gotten. And again, you know, it was so slow and steady, and then these last few weeks her weight has just taken off. And I am beginning to really think that it could be that medicine that has perhaps changed something metabolically for her. I was reading that the DEX can cause an increase in their appetite. It can also make them a little more irritable. And I would say that that could very well be the case for this little mare here. You know, she's always been the alpha, but she is a little bossier, and she scarfed that little bit of food super fast, faster than normal. And then she just, you know, came trotting out here, and you can just see her. She's just very, very hungry and really going after that grass. Now, everyone is enjoying the grass, but I do feel like there is a greater intensity. And again, I suspect that that could be partly due to the medication. Something else I've been doing, and I did not do it this morning, I've been braiding her mane to help keep her a little bit cooler. I will do so here shortly. But just giving you a look at how round she is. Her natural body type is round. She does have a big kind of sprung rib cage. One spot that really has caught my eye on her body, not only is her rump round, her belly round, but if you look at her neck, you can kind of see those wrinkles in her neck. And I think that is just because of all that extra weight that she's now carrying. So, I don't know, guys. I really have to be very careful with this one here. And, you know, she'll be out here for a very short time, and then she will soon go into her shade shelter. Usually I bring her in at 1. Yesterday, though, with this high heat, she was really, really sweaty by then, so I sponged her down. And so today I will bring her in a little sooner, and I didn't turn her back out until 8:30 last night. I do give her a little hay, but she will be off the grass for a long time. Here's a look at her little shade shelter. I've not picked it since yesterday. You know, she was in there for a long time. There are many, many piles. And we have 2 fans that we turn on her. I always make sure she has a clean bucket of water and some hay to eat. And this is working well, but boy, it's hot, and I know it's hard on her. You know, this mare, she has taught me so much, and I really appreciate that in owning her and caring for her. It's really led me to do a lot more research, and now, again, as her owner, I have to do right by her, and I have to figure this out because she's relying on me to be her caregiver and to really provide the best healthful situation for her. And so she was thin earlier when I adopted her. We got her weight in a really nice place, and now she's a little overweight. And so again, I have to be that extra vigilant overseer, and it's now my job to figure out what she needs. Something I'm going to do now today, after having cared for the horses, is hop on the mower and do as much mowing as possible. The ring here is super green and lush. It needs a good mow. The back field needs a mow. We've just got grass and really weeds everywhere, but the crabgrass is really taking off, and although the horses don't prefer to eat it, it's still a fairly nutritious grass, and should they decide that that's what's left, I don't want them to gorge themselves on it. So I'm going to cut as much as I can today, and that's kind of one more thing I can do to help manage their weight and their grazing. One more thought I've had about a modification that I could make for Sweetheart that I've not yet done that I should probably consider doing ASAP is switching her from the Triple Crown Senior to just a balancer feed. You know, the Triple Crown Senior does have more fat in it, and because I'm really concerned about her weight, she doesn't need any additional calories. It's such a small amount. Again, I feel like it can't really be that much, but that is one more thing that I have control over that I could modify that I think could very well be in her best interest. So again, today's Saturday, maybe I'll run to town and get a bag of balancer. I still have so much Triple Crown Senior that it's gonna take Rocky a long time to eat it. But again, I need to do right by my horses, and that is one more thing that I have control over. As I work to pick the stalls, I just had another thought that I wanted to share because I think it's a really important one to note. When I started Sweetheart on her second round of decks a few days ago, it was before I sort of had this epiphany that the medicine could be a large culprit for this drastic weight gain. And so when I started her on the decks, because it is a steroid, you know, you have to give it at these like certain intervals, and you have to slowly wean your horse off of it. And so once I started it, you know, I can't just take her off cold turkey. And so right now I will say I am sort of in the middle of this round of decks. So again, I definitely want to reach out to the vet though, because we're going to have several more really hot days ahead of us. And originally I was thinking, well, maybe I would need to extend her medication because the vet had mentioned that if you are in the middle of a dosage and your horse has increased difficulties, you can go back to like the higher level of the medicine, because you start off at like 1.5 milliliters for a couple of days and then 1 milliliter for a couple of days, and like you alternate every other day or something. So I have it all written down. It's just not imprinted into my brain. So again, I can't just stop the medicine, even though my gut instinct is telling me that's probably the primary culprit here. And I know she needs it because it's so hot and humid, and with her asthma or heaves and the inflammation she has within her lungs and her airway, I can't just stop it because then she'll be in real distress. So I definitely need to get up with my vet though, because I do think that we're going to have to find another plan for her. I don't know what that'll be, but I'll let you know if we come up with something better. When I say better, you know, Dex is a perfectly wonderful medicine for a lot of horses for a lot of things. I'm just not sure it's the best medication for my mare, given some of the things that I am really seeing in her right now. So, but again, I'm not an expert, and all I can do is really follow my vet's recommendations. But if you are like me and you continue to have concerns or reservations, I do think you should continue to bring those forward, because we have to advocate for our horses. I feel like I should share, like, I really like my vet. I think my vet is fantastic. I really love the whole practice. I am by no means bashing them. I just think that sometimes some cases are a little different, and every horse is different. We know this, right? And the vets are just doing the best that they know how with the training they have and the input we give them, the horses they see before them. None of us can ever know for sure 100% what any best practice would be for any particular horse or situation. And so sometimes we do have to adjust things. And so again, please don't ever think that I am speaking poorly of my vet, because I very much appreciate everything they do, and I really want to work very closely with them. But I just want to say that if you ever have concerns or reservations about something, it's never bad to raise those concerns and questions with your vet. That's why they're there. They're there to be a soundboard. And I just want everyone to kind of have that power of raising your own voice if you feel your horse is needing something different. It's a little bit like having children. And as a parent, you know, your child is fussy and they're running a fever. And so you're like, oh my gosh, it's an earache because they've had this little cold virus for a few days. You go to the doctor and the doctor checks their ears. They do a full eval and they're like, oh, nope, no ear infection. Well, as a parent, your gut instinct is like, but I'm pretty sure that's what we're working with here, what we're experiencing. And sure enough, 24 to 48 hours later, your child has a raging double ear infection, right? It happens. And again, the doctors and the vets, they're doing the best they can with what they see before them. And don't ever second guess your gut instinct though. Sometimes we're wrong, but a lot of times it is there to help guide us. So I hope you've enjoyed this little update on Sweetheart and her breathing condition and the medication usage and just all that's currently going on with this little mini of ours. You know, I'll keep you posted, and fingers crossed, you know, we get through this heat wave just fine. But now it's her weight that really has me concerned. And again, I'll keep you updated on that as we move along through the summer. Have a great rest of your day. Stay cool wherever you are, and check back soon because we're always up to something here on the farm. Bye, guys.